What is up, guys? Derek Wilcox here for Wilcox Strength Incorporated, Team Power Rack Strength, and of course, always wearing that Inzer Advanced Designs gear. Uh, this is kind of an abrupt change, even though I still have a weightlifting meet coming up. I injured my ankle pretty majorly at a trampoline park trying to play around with my three nieces for a birthday party, and ended up doing a backflip, which I'd done several flips at the trampoline park. Wasn't that big of a deal, but I happened to take an ill-advised jump, and when I landed, my right foot was turned 90 degrees out to the side. I fell over and landed on it, so it was a pretty bad sprain. So I decided to go ahead and move into my conditioning and volume training, which is all done with 1 minute rest, and the set and reps are 5x5 right now. Now, this isn't only for conditioning and hypertrophy, but also working on my mobility to try and potentiate a little bit better athleticism, hit better positions in my throwing that's coming up this spring. So that always has a really good effect, even way down the line when I get back into powerlifting training in the summer and fall. As you can see, I'm a little bit out of practice with the rear foot elevated split squat, but these do so much, not even considering how much hypertrophy and strength that you can get on the front leg, but the back leg, it helps you lengthen out those hip flexors, and especially the psoas, and all those things are antagonistic to holding a good posture in the bottom of a squat or any athletic position that's relatively low. But I'm also extremely out of breath on these, and that's probably part of the reason why I'm bumbling around right there. But doing all these things with just a minute rest, and I had to change positions there, someone needed to bench, but doing all these things with a minute rest, it's not necessarily good for technique, it's not necessarily good for power development, but I'm at a point now where my overall strength, I can still develop a lot of force and power on these, especially body weight movements, but I can do it repeatedly, so I don't feel like I'm going to lose as much, because over time, as athletes get stronger, squatting well above 2 times body weight, 3 times body weight, whatever, you can still produce a ton of force without as much load on you. So you tend to notice a lot of older lifters that don't have to lift as heavy as often, and they can get a lot more out of lighter weights. And this is really a big reason why. Now, these overhead lunges, you don't see people doing these a whole lot, and usually for good reason, because they're awful to do. There's nothing fun about it. But what this does, kind of similar to the bird dogs that we talk about with McGill's work, an overhead squat causes a very strong neural drive along your spine to stabilize. Now, I'm not using much weight, it's just an empty bar, but pulling off these lunges and hitting good positions with the load removed from my center of gravity causes my back to work quite a bit more in stabilizing and coordinating with all the muscles around the spine, and it should help potentiate better posture and better coordination to hitting good positions. Now, this is a separate pull day for upper body primarily that I have in my training right now, where I'm doing 5x5 pull-ups, and you'll see a few other exercises later as well. But even though this is just body weight, I'll weigh about 225 to 230 normally now. So these aren't super easy, but I can still knock out those bodyweight pull-ups real well. But when you start adding in 1 minute rest in between sets of 5 of that, it starts getting a little bit tough. Dumbbell rows, the same thing, trying to keep my form relatively strict. No leg drive on these, hopefully, and getting a big stretch in the very bottom. Now, these are dumbbell snatches, sorry for the blurry video, but I do these to help condition my external rotator cuff muscles. Those tend to get weak as internal rotator cuff muscles, or internally rotating rotator cuff muscles, tend to get very tight, particularly in powerlifters. Now, I've actually come across this a lot with working with adaptive athletes in powerlifting, for people who are in wheelchairs and crutches, and that research has led me to see this happens a lot for everybody in powerlifting, especially. Weightlifters not so much, because their weights go overhead and they get a lot more shoulder mobility from normal movements. But hopefully these will help everything down the line, as they usually do, which is the reason I took this off-season time to do that instead of jumping back into a meet. So, see how this develops. In the meantime, take care and stay strong.